And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Max Verstappen and his chaotic Hungarian Grand Prix. Not one of his best races. He did start third. On the start, he did get pushed wide by Lando Norris. He was trying to avoid an Oscar Piastri coming on the inside. And he did go off. He then booted it to keep ahead of Lando Norris. And to be fair to Max, he kind of disagreed. But then he did give the place back. And a lot of this race was Max just shouting at his team down the radio. We have seen Lewis Hamilton do it. We've seen other drivers do it. Max is particularly good at doing it. He has a fairly leery relationship with GP, his race engineer, who seems okay with that. Is it okay for the kids watching? Maybe not, but sport does get very emotional. Sport does get very passionate, and we've heard all drivers do that. So if you're going to say Max should rein it in, all drivers should absolutely rein it in. Yes, Max is particularly more of a potty mouth than some of the others, but still, you can't have one rule for one and one rule for all the others. We'll most certainly get into that in a bit. So here is the move between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. That ended Max's chance to fight for the podium. As you can see here, Max has got the DRS open. He's arriving a lot faster at the corner. There's potentially a fair bit of overspeed, let's say, in terms of he's going faster than Lewis. What happens then? I hear you say, well, here we go. I mean, he's coming from quite far back. And at this point now, Lewis, he's looking in the mirrors. Potentially he can see Max. And Lewis starts to turn into the corner. Max is kind of already there. But Lewis, it all happened so quickly. But then they're now side by side. And here, I mean, if Max was under control, it probably wouldn't. And Max was turning along with Lewis Hamilton at this point, it probably wouldn't be too bad. But the problem is now, at the very next straight, instead of Max turning, he's now locked up because he's just absolutely sent it, rightly or wrongly, to for the Max Verstappen fans here. I think potentially wrongly, although the stewards did say it was a racing incident. And then look at that. I mean, he's looking up. Yeah, he's looking up his tyres. And he's continuing to go forward. Lewis is turning into the corner, as you can see there, looking for that apex, and then basically whoops a daisy, even more whoops a daisy. And you know, I believe, you know, is that a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Max Verstappen almost making it to the skyline, and then he carries on. And unfortunately, that ends Max Verstappen's race. So, yeah, I mean, he was a bit cross about it. He gets interviewed. He does blame Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton seems to take a slightly different view, but to be fair, calls it a racing incident. So is he being the better man? I will no doubt let you guys. Let you guys decide on that. But what's interesting is Max Verstappen on the radio, absolutely, him and GP, very, very excitable, very, very cross. Yeah, it's kind of a bit sad, really, between the two of them. But let's get into those interviews, as I mentioned, so bear with me. Okay, here's Max Verstappen's interview. I'll post all the links.
Any of the frustrations
Here we go.
over into that contact with Lewis?
I don't think so. I mean, I went for a move that was fully on, but then in the middle of the braking zone, when I'm already committed, of course, to the move, he suddenly just keeps warping right.
Now, I'm going to pause it apart. He went for a move that's fully on. No, I don't think he did. As you've already seen in the pictures, he was way behind. If the move was not fully on, you locked up, Max. You were going there with too much speed, which we'll get into the stewards' decision in a second. But let's see what else he has to say.
And if I wouldn't have turned while braking straight, I would have made contact with him. So
I don't think he was turning though. He wasn't turning. He locked up. And he wasn't really turning. He was kind of locking up and going straight on, but
yeah, naturally I lock up because he just keeps on turning to the right. People always made a lot about what happened in Austria, what was not correct, blah blah blah. But that's on the initial move, and then you just brake straight. You hold your wheel quite straight, and I felt like now it was not on the initial move, but afterwards during the braking zone he keeps turning right. You cannot do that when someone is committed to the end.
Yes, I don't think you can do that, Max. But I mean, there's irony for you when you look at Austria. So I guess practice what you preach. in there, which is unfortunate. I just think he's really, really cross at Hamilton. I don't understand how he can blame Hamilton for that move.
Side. That's why I locked up, because otherwise we would have collided anyway, because he would have just turned.
But they did collide. But you did collide.
We'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, of course, if we would have done a better strategy, you're not in that position.
And there you go. I mean, yes, I completely agree. His frustration about the strategy for Max Verstappen is absolutely 110% on. Why? Because had he done a better strategy, Lewis wouldn't have undercut him, got past. It was both Lewis and Charles Leclerc that ended up undercutting Max Verstappen and making him quite cross. At that point, I think Red Bull must have been like, well, Lewis has undercut us now. He's come in, and then we're not going to bring him in the next lap because we're not sure whether we can beat that. So they were looking at the tyre offset. So when Max Verstappen does come out, he's obviously guaranteed to be behind Lewis, but his tyres will be so much better that he'll pass Lewis without too much difficulty, which sadly did not happen. Here's what Lewis Hamilton though had to say, which I thought no, this is Ted Kravitz. We'll get to that in a bit. This is what Lewis Hamilton had to say, which I thought was interesting. Let's make it here. Here we go.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, from what I can remember, I obviously we passed a back marker.
The Williams.
I got to the braking zone, and then Max appeared to overtake the car behind me, so I moved over to defend. Yeah. I left enough room in the inside, but
he did.
Max locked up, and
Max did lock up.
He was going a different trajectory to me. I was going around the corner, and he came shooting across. So it felt like a racing incident, and it's easy to make mistakes like that. And so I don't feel I don't feel there should be any hostility, but of course from his side there always will be.
Ooh. All right. Any more for Lewis?
At the end there. I don't know if that was necessary, Lewis, but a tiny little burn at the end there. Yeah, I think Lewis has got it right. He was turning into the corner. Max really wasn't. He was going straight onto the scene of the crime. Nico Rosberg had something interesting to say about Max Verstappen. He said, frustration is starting to boil over, which we as spectators quite enjoy watching, honestly, said Rosberg on Sky. He said, it's a change from the Red Bull dominance, isn't it? I guess most of us wouldn't have it any other way. It's kind of like 2021 all over again with Austria, and with obviously Hungary. He said, but I'm assuming here that maybe Max hasn't seen it yet on TV, said Rosberg. Otherwise, someone needs to tell him that was actually a corner, which is why Lewis is turning in. I mean, Lewis was taking the corner, which is what we've been saying all the time. So I'm pretty sure that he's going to get a penalty for that, but he doesn't. Why doesn't he get a penalty? Well, here we go. This is from planetf1.com. The FIA reached a verdict of no further action after Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton collided at the Hungarian Grand Prix. And in the verdict, the steward said that it was Hamilton who said it was a racing incident between the two drivers, while Verstappen believed the Mercedes driver moved under braking to defend his position, which we've heard in the interview. The stewards wrote, and this is what I think is quite interesting, on the approach to turn 1, both car 44, Lewis, car 1, Verstappen, overtook car 23, one of the Williams. Car 44 returned to the racing line before the braking zone and commenced to turn into turn 1, which we've seen in the photos. Car 1 approached the turn faster than on the previous laps due to DRS, braked at the same point as previously, but he was going faster, wasn't he? And the driver of car 1 argued that car 44 was changing direction under braking. The driver of car 44 stated he was simply following his normal racing line, which was confirmed by examination of video telemetry data on the previous laps. It was clear that car 1 locked up both front wheels on the approach to turn 1 prior to any impact occurring, but missing the normal cornering for a typical racing manoeuvre. So the driver of car 44 stated that this was a racing incident, while the driver of car 1 argued that it was changing direction. It wasn't changing direction, Max. This guy is so paranoid, isn't he? Yeah. So there's, I mean, essentially, Max, there's your proof. I think, and as you can see here, let's quickly refer back to the pictures, because he's not changing his line at all. So bear with me. We will. Okay, so let's reverse that and go back to the top. As you can see here, Max Verstappen is behind Lewis Hamilton. He's still behind. He's braking, but he's coming because, as you can see in the first photo here, he's got DRS. Max Verstappen is intent on passing Lewis Hamilton. He's closed his DRS now because he's now put the braking on. I think Hamilton at this point has been braking for a bit longer. Hamilton is looking towards the corner, probably his mirrors as well, turning into the corner already, and Max Verstappen is still now turning. And he's now just started to turn to the corner. But you can see, he's now just started to turn to the corner. But you can see a tiny fleck of dust because he's locked his wheels up. And at this point, he's not going to change directory. But Hamilton thinking he would. Now, if Verstappen was here, but he was going at the right speed and able to turn, they wouldn't have collided. He'd have turned to the apex. Nice pass on Lewis Hamilton. But now he locks up. And his trajectory is absolutely not changing, is it? It's kind of like going into a diagonal line, essentially, while Lewis is trying to turn into the corner, and then they just hit each other. So, Max Verstappen, it is not Lewis's fault. As the stewards have suggested, it is absolutely your fault. Luckily, I think for Max, Lewis has said it was a racing incident. So, that kind of means that lets Max Verstappen, indeed, off the leash. Now, here's the interesting thing. Yes, it's not a lockup. And I'm quite happy with that being a racing incident. But would it have been a racing incident if Lewis had been out, for example? Because Max was out of control of the car. Who knows? The stewards seem to be quite inconsistent. Going back now, dare I say it, to Silverstone 2021. If this is a racing incident, so is Silverstone 2021. No, it's not Lewis braking it. Lewis is arguably more in control of the car than this one here, but he does understeer a bit into Max Verstappen. So if you call this a racing incident, the stewards really should be calling Silverstone 2021 a racing incident, because there's not lockups, but a lot of the mechanics of it are very similar. But there we go. So I mean, GP even said Verstappen said Hamilton moved in the braking zone. GP saying, "I'm not even going to get into the radio fight with the other teams, Max. We'll let the stewards do their thing. It's childish on the radio. Childish. Yeah. So let's. I mean, what?" And I think Ted Kravitz sums it up really well.
They're calling it a racing incident, which is what Red Bull do when it's Max Verstappen's fault. But everyone else is calling it Max Verstappen's fault with the last bit, with outbraking himself, and would have gone straight on had Lewis not turned in. Lewis did turn in. Well, Lewis didn't turn in. He was there, and then Max went over his wheels. First of all,
there you go. I mean, that kind of sums it up quite well, doesn't it? That really does sum it up quite well. And that's Max Verstappen on his critics. I think it's from GB fan. They can all bleep off. Fair enough, Max. I mean, that's why lots of people. That's why I like you. That's why lots of people like you. You don't care what people think. I do think he can put it a slightly more eloquent, less potty mouth way. But there we go. So if you like what you see, if you like what you saw, even give us a subscribe. That would be lovely. If you didn't, fair enough. Comment below. Are we completely in the wrong? I'm saying racing. Max's fault, but understand. I'm quite happy it's a racing incident. But it is Max's fault. What do you guys think? Comment below. Let us know. Give us a subscribe if you want to see more Formula 1 stuff. Thank you very much. And we'll speak to you soon.